Hello, this is Dave with the No Name Show. Welcome to another exciting yet truthful episode. Yeah, that sounds very cheesy. I apologize. Today we're going to be talking about what the dumper is thinking, what the dumper is feeling. Basically, the stages for the dumper, what they go through, sort of from their perspective. It's easy to sort of assume that, the dumper is perfectly fine because they're the ones who made that decision. And, for all intended purposes, or for what seems like what you can see being the dumpy on the receiving end of, being broken up with, yes, most times it seems like the dumper is certain on what they want to do and they're perfectly okay. But I think when you learn about stuff after time has passed and after the whole breakup, you realize, okay, they were probably going through, difficulties, but we're probably trying not to show it because they made the decision to end the relationship. They terminated the terms of your agreements, or they basically changed the terms of your agreement when you decided to go into a relationship together. So they want to come off as decisive, certain, smart, and sure, firm in their decision. But I'm here to bust that bubble because, that's what we do here, to sort of give you comfort, if you're in that position right now. In all honesty, most of the time, the dumpers aren't sure of their decision. They aren't firmly, confident in the decisions they make when they choose to break up with you. They do it because at that moment they feel like there is no getting past whatever the problem is, or they don't find themselves attracted to you anymore, or there's something that has, sort of been going on, continuously, and they're like, you know what, I don't think I can continue with this. I don't know how it's going to play out in the future, but one thing I know is I sort of want this to sort of end right now, but they're not confident in it. Partly, some of them sort of, hope to either sort of in some form have you still in their lives, either as a friend or, sort of like just there hanging around in the friend zone and, not completely out of their lives. But we know better. We know that if someone breaks up with you, as I've said in my previous videos, you should go no contact. Basically ghost. To them, you don't exist on the face of the planet of the earth. That is usually what we do. But right now, we're not talking about, your experience. We're talking about what the dumper experiences. So usually, the build-up before they let you know that they want to end the relationship is usually very difficult and tense for them because, to a certain extent, for a while, they've been contemplating this decision. Sometimes, not all the time. And, they've been working up the courage to sort of let you know that, okay, look, this isn't going to work. We have to sort of break off. But, it takes a lot because they know they're going to hurt you. And to a certain extent, they're not 100% sure, but they feel like they have no choice but just to let you know and, try and move forward. So the first thing they do is once they break up with you, once they let you know, once it happens, is they feel relief. This heavy weight has been lifted off their shoulder. They've been agonizing about how you were going to react to it for months or for weeks, and they finally tell you, and it's finally off their shoulder. They're trying to move forward, and you're like, okay, I've done this, I can move forward. And within our first few weeks, they're perfectly okay for the most part, and they are, firm in the fact that this is the right decision. Now, how they feel afterwards is dependent on how you sort of react to it moving forwards. Now, don't blame yourself if at first you begged, you pleaded, you tried to get. It's the natural response for 80% of people who are blindsided by breakups. So don't take it too personal. Don't feel too embarrassed. It's how you handle it afterwards that, sort of determines how well it goes. So, if you are listening to the right coaches and if you've been following my advice, you would know that the first thing you have to do is go no contact. Now, usually when you go no contact at first, from the dumper's perspective, you're like, okay, I have not heard from this person in a few weeks after we broke up. That's fine. I don't really miss them and everything. And then a month passes, and 2 months passes. 2 months pass, sorry. And to a certain extent, they start to wonder, like, oh, I haven't heard from this person in 2 months. I know I said we should be broken up, but, don't they at least remotely care about me? Now, usually it takes 3, it takes 4 months. It depends on the person. This is just a blanket statement because every single case is peculiar and dynamic based on the interaction during, after, and, basically in the process of the breakup. So they tend to wonder, okay, why hasn't this person called? It's been 2 months, it's been 3 months. But we know that as a dumpy, you're working on yourself, you're going no contact, trying to just, and you're thinking, let me see what this person is up to. Maybe after a 3-4 month period, they are mildly stalking your social media or asking about you from mutual friends. And, just trying to put feelers out there so that they don't make it seem like, they're trying to get back together or something, or give you the wrong idea. And as the time passes, in 6-7 months, then they start to, depending on the person, like I said, all exes are different. In my case, it took, I think, 3 months for my ex to start poking around. Then they start to mildly reach out. Maybe they'll send a text and be like, oh, hi. Some might not be that direct. They might post on social media sort of to give that whole facade of, oh, feeling lonely or this or that, regret certain decisions I made, Sort of get you in that place where you're like, where you reach out. We know better. We aren't supposed to reach out. The only time we reach out or respond to our ex is when they reach out directly to us. Remember, the ex has to go out of their way because they broke up with you. So if there's going to be any communication between both of you, it has to come from them. It has to be their decision, it has to be their move, and it has to be direct. No, they posted on their WhatsApp status or their Snapchat story or, Nope. Focus on yourself and let them do what they have to do. Let them go through all the stages. Now, usually when they, put in some, basically it's called breadcrumbing when they're trying to like put out fillers and, either they're posting on social media or, putting out things that they hope you would see and reach out. When they really get desperate is when they reach out directly. At that point, they've evaluated basically the terms of what they did, and they're starting to come to terms with the difficulty. Because you need to understand that as much as you were used to having that person around and always communicating with them, they had that same habit. So breaking away from it is not as easy as you think it is. Like, no matter how strong or how tough you are, once you're trying to break a habit, there are always going to be things that remind you of those habits. So the stages you go through in that initial phase is what they now start to experience months later when they start, like, the decision they've made starts to dawn on them. And then they reach out. Usually they reach out casually just to be like, oh, can we be friends? And in my case, I know a couple of times I remember my ex reaching out and saying, she just wants us to be friends. And I remember explicitly saying that, thank you for the offer, but I'm not necessarily interested in being friends with you. And to be honest, I wasn't really interested in getting back together with her. Even though for a while, for the first time when it happened, I was. But at that point, I wasn't. I said, I need to focus on myself. It took me a lot to get over this, and I'm still working on it. So thank you, but I don't think we should be in contact anymore. Now, it seems harsh because I didn't want to get back together with my ex. And at that moment, I didn't really want much to do with her because I needed to sort of fix myself. But, if you want to get back together with your ex, you tell them, look, anything outside of the fact that we are working on getting back together, and it's not like we're getting back together immediately, but you have to show me that I can trust you again, then you're not interested. If they're interested in that, then they can always reach out to you directly. Make it clear and go back to working on yourself. It is extremely important that you do not start to grovel or say, oh, I've missed you. Be stoic. Imagine you're playing a poker game and you're keeping your cards close to your chest. And really, if you have done the work that we recommend you do during no contact, at that point, you won't be, anxious, you won't be groveling, you'll be confident, and, regardless of whatever the outcome of what they say, your self-esteem isn't tied to it because you've detached yourself from that anxiety that comes with having to be remotely around your ex or having to even just hear the person's name or see their pictures. So at that point, when you're reaching out, they might try to put in fillers and see if they can get you back, and usually we tell you, be cool, be stoic, act like, look, regardless of whether you come back or not, I'm perfectly okay. And what happens afterwards is once they see you start to do well, it shatters them because they're like, oh, I thought this person would be devastated. I thought this person would not be able to move on, but I may not be that important. And then they now start to deal with their own stages of grief. Now, this isn't an exact, this is not an exact explanation for what happened for everybody's ex, because again, it's a generalization. Each case is different. Each case is, specific to what happened, what led to the breakup, and every other thing else. But generally, when you do no contact and when you focus on yourself, these are the things you should expect, from your ex in terms of how they're feeling and how they're dealing with it. So they go from being relieved to being perfectly confident. And you will notice that, for that first stage where they are sort of relieved, they're trying to sort of affirm their decision because they're not sure of it. And you see them hanging out with new people. They're going to new places. Don't worry about it. Trust me, it's all a facade. And again, stay off social media. It's all a facade. They're just trying to, escape the reality of the situation. But eventually, they will have to come to terms with what they did. And the reason why it's worse is because they chose to put you guys in that position. They chose the breakup. You did not. So that's why, when they start to feel the grief, it feels like self-infliction. It feels like it's self-harm, basically. So if there's one thing I can tell you confidently, is the dumper is absolutely not sure about the decision they've made. And every other day, they are going to be second-guessing their decision, especially if they see you doing well and they see that you are perfectly fine without them. Ooh, it hurts. Like Rory says, when someone breaks up with you, they're expecting you not to do well. And when you do, it shatters, the perspective they had about breaking up with you. And then they start to second guess themselves. So, to answer your question, what is the dumper experiencing? What is the dumper feeling? They are feeling unsure. They are not certain about the decision. So that should give you some level of comfort. But like we always say, focus on yourself, work on yourself, and trust me, everything will align. You'll be perfectly fine. If you enjoyed this talk, please hit the subscribe button or the notification button, whichever, suits you. Hopefully we can do more of these talks with better topics and more deep dives into the psychological effects of being broken up with and anxiety and all that. But like I said, hit the subscribe, hit the notification. I will talk to you on the next one. Take care.